Hi guys, how's your day? Ready for new stories? Let's go to the first one, about OP's wife, who thinks OP will divorce her if she goes back to being a brunette, because wives are supposed to be blonde. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to leave a comment. Since my wife and I got married 3 years ago, things have been off. I know that people grow and change with time, but around our wedding, my wife changed drastically. She bleached her dark brown hair blonde right before the ceremony, and I honestly thought I was in the wrong church for a split second when she came down the aisle. We moved into our house right after the honeymoon, and she went into full domestic mode. We'd shared cleaning duties before, but once we moved into the house, she became insistent on doing everything before I could even get to it. Since this is our first house, I thought it was some kind of homeowner nesting thing, but it never stopped. Her hair color is none of my business, and I think most people would be happy not to have to clean. So I honestly didn't really think much of either of those things at the time. The big thing has always been how closed off she got after the wedding. When we were dating, she'd tell me long rambling stories about her feelings and rant to me when she was upset and all that, and I liked hearing about what was going on inside her head. After the wedding, she stopped pretty abruptly. If I ask her how her day was, she will only ever tell me that it was fine, or super. She doesn't talk to me about her feelings anymore, ever. Even when I explicitly ask, "How do you feel about X?" She also stopped telling me about anything important that happened to her. About a year after we got married, her grandfather died. Did she tell me she lost her grandfather? No. She told me that she had to go to a conference for work on the other side of the country, which I thought nothing of. Her older brother texted me to tell me that my in-laws had really missed seeing me at the funeral. When I called her to ask her why in the ever-loving hell she didn't tell me, she then lied about it. All she would say was, "I didn't want to trouble you. You have a lot on your plate." After that, she went on a couple of spontaneous family trips. She's really, really close to her family. So the first time she said to me she was going camping with her brother at their alma mater, I didn't think a lot of it, other than to be slightly disappointed and confused that I wasn't invited. Because her brother's cool, and the three of us go camping together a lot. But the second time, I started hearing alarm bells. I'd like to say I'm a more secure man, but after the second spontaneous family trip, my wheels started spinning, and I started to think that maybe she was cheating. This was a weird insecurity in the back of my mind for a while, since she wasn't showing any other big signs of cheating. She wasn't guarded about her phone and hadn't changed her routine appearance. A few weeks ago, she told me she was pregnant. I was over the moon about it until I asked how many weeks along she was, and she nonchalantly said about 12 or 13. She'd been pregnant for like 3 months before she even bothered to tell me. She's not showing at all, and she doesn't usually drink, so I had been completely in the ducking dark. I honestly hadn't even suspected. That was kind of it for me. I was sure she was cheating, and that it wasn't my kid. I thought there was no possible way that a woman would keep her pregnancy a secret from her husband for 3 months. So I snooped. Yes, I know it was wrong, but I wanted proof that she'd been having an affair before I moved out. One of my best buddies from college is a divorce attorney, and when I asked him what I should do, he sent me the info for a keylogger. I installed it on my wife's laptop and was prepared for the worst. Now, I feel like what I found is somehow worse than her cheating. I didn't find any steamy messages, but I found out that she keeps a diary and a Word document that she writes in every day. I know I should have just stopped once I knew she wasn't cheating, but once I saw my name in her diary, I couldn't stop. I read all of it, all 7 separate documents, going back to way before we'd even met. Turns out, she's not cheating. She's depressed as duck, hates herself, and has absolutely no trust in me. All of the stuff I'd been confused and bothered by has some kind of sad, self-loathing explanation. She hates having blonde hair, but she writes, "I know he'd divorce me if I went back to being a brunette, because wives are supposed to be blonde." Almost every week, the wives are supposed to be thing is tangled up in everything. She thinks wives are supposed to be quiet, which is why she doesn't talk to me anymore. She thinks wives are supposed to make things easier for their husband, not harder, which is why she didn't tell me when her grandfather died. It just goes on and on and on. She didn't tell me when she got a huge promotion and a raise because he'd leave me in a heartbeat if he knew I made more money than he does. Men can't handle that. It hurt to know she thinks of me as some kind of one-dimensional 1950s husband, and I've been racking my brain to think of anything I could have done to make her think this way. What I can't handle is that she'd lied about the big stuff. I honestly don't know if I can forgive her for not telling me about the miscarriages. The spontaneous family trips were actually her miscarrying two of our children, one at 5 weeks, the other at about 10. She went and stayed with her parents while she was recuperating, and her brother and sister came to support her, but not me. I didn't get to be there for her, because she thinks I would leave her immediately if I knew that she'd K our children. She's convinced that she has caused both miscarriages because she smoked pee for a long time before we got married. For what it's worth, it sounds like her family tried both times to get her to tell me, but she wouldn't. She finally told me about this pregnancy because her parents threatened to tell me if she did it. I'm just absolutely dumbfounded. I don't even know what to think right now. I'm just so baffled because everything she says about me in her diary is insanely nice. She goes on for pages and pages about how much she loves me, and how she thinks I'm her soulmate, and how she would do anything for me. I just can't understand why she thinks that I would leave her. Knowing that she spent the last 3 years walking on eggshells around me, convinced that I would leave her at the drop of a hat, is just so confusing and awful. I feel like our marriage is some kind of lie. The woman I thought was self-confident and ready to take on the world is actually full of self-loathing and really depressed. I don't know her at all. She's been suffering silently with depression long before we met. She has no faith in me, no trust. She thinks that every hug and kiss I give her and every I love you I say is a lie. I just don't know what to do. She obviously needs serious help, but I don't know how to get it for her. I can't tell her that I read her diary. If she has zero trust in me now, I can't even imagine what she'd think if she knew I'd read 6 years worth of her private thoughts. I feel like I need to get my in-laws on board somehow, but I don't know what to say to them. I know I can't ignore this, but I feel like any move is the wrong move. What do I do? Edit. After I posted this, I realized I'd kind of omitted the deal with the keylogger. It's worse than it sounds, honestly. After it showed me what she'd written that day, I went onto her computer while she was sleeping and opened up Word. I saw that she had several documents called Diary Year X, so I downloaded them all onto a flash drive and read them at work. I went too far, I know. Normally I'd say reading a diary is a bit of a violation, but in this case, I think it may have been necessary. OP's wife is obviously very unhappy and skilled at hiding it, and there was no other way OP was going to know. I'm not sure how OP goes forward on this, though, because OP is right. If she doesn't trust him now, finding out he read her diaries for the past several years is hardly going to help that. I'd say OP should talk to his in-laws first, but he should let them know that he is primarily concerned about his wife's, their daughter's, health and happiness. To begin, this is a really crazy story. Some of you might call BS here. I probably wouldn't believe it if someone told me this happened to them. But I would really appreciate the advice. I'm gonna give as much information as possible. Sorry for the background. My family owns a ranch about 3 hours away from my parents' house. It's very beautiful, but also very remote. It's hard to get to. There's a point where you can't take a vehicle to the ranch house and need to walk about a quarter mile. My now husband and I decided to get married there and spent about $10K on decorations and amenities for the ceremony. My brother, 26 male, eloped with my sister-in-law, 20 female, when they lived in another state. Then he brought her back here. She's slowly meeting my family. She seems very sweet and shy, although I don't know her very well. She started acting weird at my rehearsal dinner. She looked very uncomfortable, said she was having bad cramps, and asked my brother to take her home early. 2 days later at the ceremony, she looked even worse than before, very sick and tired. She was taking 4 tabs of ibuprofen at a time, but insisted on standing with me at the altar. Ceremony starts. She's almost in tears. She's trying very hard to keep it together, but I can hear her whimpering. My stepsister had to almost hold her up. We were taking pictures, and she can barely stand. She's inconsolable, crying and complaining about cramps again. Then, she promptly vomits all over herself. This essentially canceled my wedding. My brother had to carry her back to the house, where they laid her on the floor and did everything to make her comfortable while they waited for an ambulance, about an hour away. She was obviously in pain and bled quite a bit. EMTs show up and tell her she's in labor. She's shocked. My brother is shocked. Nobody knew she was pregnant, including her. About an hour later, she gives birth on the kitchen floor. She was so shocked she wouldn't even hold the kid. Nobody knew she was pregnant. She apparently had very irregular periods, and it wasn't unusual to skip months. To be fair, she didn't look pregnant at all. No belly whatsoever. My brother mentioned maybe 15 pounds of weight gain and some heartburn, but that's it. I can't help but be mad at her for this. I was very excited for my wedding and was looking forward to spending a romantic evening with my new husband. Now, I essentially had no wedding, no dancing, no dinner. I'm upset that she never asked for help, or had the sense to tell me she wasn't feeling well. I'm upset that nobody took her to the hospital and let the wedding proceed. I also feel like she was lying about not knowing she was pregnant, because I don't just believe you cannot know. I haven't seen either of them or their baby since this happened. Am I the a-hole for this? Yes, I think OP is a huge a-hole. There's a huge difference between being upset with how a situation went, resulting in feeling disappointed, and feeling angry at a person who had zero malicious intent, did nothing wrong, and didn't know there was an issue. The girl stayed until she puked on herself. That's a loyal friend who wanted OP to shine. I'd also call OP a bridezilla. The wedding is one day. OP should accept her disappointment, find a way to celebrate differently, and go see how she's doing. I, 26 female, have 2 siblings, 28 male and 32 male. Our parents had been married for over 30 years. Dad fell into a stereotypical affair with his 25-year-old secretary and left Mom for her. He bounced back and forth between both of them until Mom grew a spine and divorced Dad. His mistress was devious and would post pics on social media like Dad was some kind of prize. She taunted our mom on the phone. The affair caused my mom a considerable amount of pain. She got some justice in divorce court, and Dad's family have refused to accept his mistress. We don't even call Dad's wife by her name. We call her Dad's hoe-wife, even to her face. There is not a derogatory name in the dictionary we have not called her to her face. My brothers and I actually sat down and came up with a way to make her feel like the pariah she is. We decided the best way to protect Mom and get back some sanity was to go very low contact with Dad and shun his mistress and treat her like she did not exist. We all needed to move on. Dad married his mistress, and not one person, not even his brother or parents, showed up at their wedding. We told our grandparents that we were going to have limited contact with Dad, and if there was a family event and Dad and his mistress were there, not to be upset with us for not attending. They told us how ashamed they were of Dad, and his mistress would never be welcome in their home. They told Dad he was welcome at family events, but his wife was not. The rest of the family followed suit, and sure enough, she has not been invited to anything, and she has never seen the grandkids in person. At first, Dad went along with this for 2 years, but it started causing major issue in his marriage. I think he left her home alone one too many times, and she left him. Then, he gave our grandparents an ultimatum, that his wife would be included, or he would no longer attend family events. My grandma, bless her heart, told him that she would miss him, but trollops were not allowed in her house. We had no contact with him at all for 6 months. He started attending family events again without his wife. So she packed up and left him again. Last weekend, he sat us down and begged us to accept his wife. He said he loves and misses us and wants to see his grandkids grow up. He said his wife will divorce him if he attends another family event without her. We told him she will never be welcome ever in our lives, and these were consequences they both needed to live with. He walked away completely defeated. So here is where I think I may be the a-hole. He said our mom has moved on and is happily remarried. He said he deserves to be happy too. He loves his wife, and she makes him happy, but there is a dark cloud over them because of this estrangement. He cannot be away from his grandkids, so he is going to end up divorced. I know we took a hard line with Dad and his mistress, but have we taken it too far? Are we the a-holes? Okay, guys, I really want to hear your opinion on this. A majority of people voted that OP is an a-hole. Do you agree with that? Or is it really the consequences OP's dad and his mistress needs to live with? In my opinion, it takes 2 to tango.